King David. The name brings up the images of battling giants, ancient Israel, and naked Renaissance sculptures. The role he plays in the history of Judaism and Christianity is very hard to underestimate, as he is credited with establishing the Judaic kingdom and being the ancestor of Jesus Christ. The historicity of King David, though, for many years was a hot-button issue among archaeologists, with many people in what is known as the minimalist school stating that King David probably never existed. This changed, though, in 1993 when a stele mentioning the House of King David was discovered. The question largely shifted from whether or not King David actually existed to, did he really rule a kingdom? Or was he just sort of a glorified gang leader at the head of a primitive, unorganized tribe? The question, though, was largely put to rest with the discovery of Khirbet Qeiyafa in 2007 and the digs that took place there through 2013. Khirbet Qeiyafa is located in central Israel and is about a day's walk from Jerusalem. Also, it overlooks the valley of Elah, where the Bible says that the battle with Goliath took place. The site was first noticed during field surveys in 1869 by Victor Gordon. However, it was perceived to be inconsequential and therefore laid in obscurity for many years. It became noticed when archaeologist Sargonor found remnants of the Iron Age in 2005. As well, the modern nearby city of Beit Shemesh was considering building projects in the area. Accordingly, excavations of the city commenced in 2007 and went on for 6 years under the leadership of archaeologists Yosef Garfinkel, Sargonor, and Michael Hazel, with the help of dozens of volunteers and experts. Now, it is important to state that only about a third of the site has been excavated, as there is an unspoken rule among archaeologists in Israel that you don't excavate a whole site, but leave some of it for future generations to examine. What has been uncovered, though, greatly clarifies what we know archaeologically about ancient Judah. The site of Khirbet Qeiyafa is in a rough oval shape and covers about 5.5 acres with a massive wall going around it that is about 1,968 feet in circumference, or about the length of 6.5 American football fields. It is constructed with 2 parallel walls, known as a casemate wall, to serve as an extra layer of protection in case of siege. Now, what is significant about this is that it shows that this was a planned city, not just some haphazardly built city. The city itself was actually only partially inhabited, which means that some central state with money had planned for the city to serve as a type of fortress. One of the most interesting facts about the site is that it has 2 gates. This is highly unusual, as most of the ancient cities in the Middle East have just one. The gates in ancient times were where much of the business of the city were conducted, such as a property dispute between neighbors who hated each other, or couples who couldn't stand each other and wanted to get divorced. Many fascinating artifacts were found at the site, one of which is an inscription on a pottery sherd, which may be one of the oldest Hebrew inscriptions we have. However, it is fragmented and reading it is difficult to say the least. One possible translation that is put forward by Dr. Gershon Galil is 1. You shall not do it, but worship the Lord. 2. Judge the slave and the widow. Judge the orphan. 3. The stranger. Plead for the infant. Plead for the poor. 4. The widow. Rehabilitate the poor at the hands of the king. 5. Protect the poor and the slave. Support the stranger. The words on the ostracon echoes themes found in the Davidic Psalms and in the Torah. Another inscription that was found at Khirbet Qeiyafa is the Eshbaal inscription, which is written in an ancient Canaanite script and states simply, Eshbaal, son of Beda. The name Beda does not appear in the Old Testament, but Eshbaal does in 1 Chronicles chapter 8 verse 33, though there he is the son of King Saul. obviously not the same person in this inscription, but it is interesting that the name shows up in a contemporary time period. Also fascinating is the fact that of all the animal bones found at the site, there were no pig bones, despite being found in abundance at nearby known Philistine sites. Between the inscriptions and the absence of people eating bacon, this has led many scholars to conclude that this was an ancient Judaic site. You may be thinking now, all these are fun facts, but what does this have to do with King David? How do we even know it was from the same time period as King David? The first answer has to do with the pottery styles. In the ancient Middle East, we are able to roughly date a site based on the pottery, as the pottery gradually changed over time. In the instance of Khirbet Qeiyafa, this is significant as the overwhelming majority of the pottery dated to Iron Age II, specifically the 9th and 10th century BC, which means that the site was inhabited for a brief period during this specific time. However, what is problematic is that this is not that precise in the dating. Shedding more light on the timing is the radiocarbon dating that was done of a jar of 20 olive pits, which indicate definitively that the site was destroyed no later than 980 to 970 BC. What is fascinating is the fact that David would have begun his reign in Judah at roughly 1000 BC, which places this city squarely within the time periods of King Saul and David. Also interesting are the various temple models found in the site, which help shed some light on the religious practices of the inhabitants. One of them has eerie resemblance to the first and second Jewish temples. As one archaeologist said, the uppermost lintel is separate from the two lower door frames and reaches the roof, precisely the way in which the doorways of the first temple and the second temple were organized. As well, there's a notable absence of occultic figures after 6 years of excavating, which is unusual compared to other contemporary Canaanite cities, which suggests a religious practice that did not involve statues or figures. Or possibly, women were just sick of having these ugly statues around the house. The most prominent theory for a possible identification of the site is the biblical city of Shaarem, which in Hebrew means double gate. In the Bible, after the battle of David and Goliath, in the adjacent valley of Elah, it says in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 52, "And the men of Israel and Judah rose with a shout, and pursued the Philistines as far as Gath and the gates of Ekron, so that the wounded Philistines fell on the way from Shaarem as far as Gath and Ekron." There are so many different aspects of the site that we did not go over in this video, but I hope to have shown a broad overview of the site and shown how it possibly sheds light upon ancient Judah and the figure of David. The site is held by many scholars as proof that there was an ancient established Judaic kingdom, as the site required extensive planning and money to build and maintain. The timing fits squarely within the period of King David, and the site appears to be an ancient Judaic site. If you're interested in learning more about the ancient city, I recommend buying the book In the Footsteps of King David by Yosef Garfinkel, Saur Ganor, and Michael Hazel. The book was a major source of information for this video and goes into much deeper detail about Khirbet Qeiyafa.